Section 1 of the Relations of Saint Teresa of Avila. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Anne Boulay. The Relations of Saint Teresa of Avila. Translated by David Lewis. Relation 1. Sent to St. Peter of Alcantara in 1560 from the Monastery of the Incarnation, Avila. The method of prayer I observe at present is this. When I am in prayer, it is very rarely that I can use the understanding, because the soul becomes at once recollected, remains in repose, or falls into a trance, so that I cannot in any way have the use of the faculties and the senses, so much so that the hearing alone is left, but then it does not help me to understand anything. It often happens, when I am not even thinking of the things of God, but engaged in other matters, and when prayer seems to be beyond my power, whatever efforts I might make, because of the great aridity I am in, bodily pains contributing thereto, that this recollection or elevation of spirit comes upon me so suddenly that I cannot withstand it, and the fruits and blessings it brings with it are in a moment mine, and this without my having had a vision, or heard anything, or knowing where I am, except that when the soul seems to be lost, I see it make great progress, which I could not have made if I had labored for a whole year, so great is my gain. At other times, certain excessive impetuosities occur, accompanied with a certain fainting away of the soul for God, so that I have no control over myself. My life seems to have come to an end, and so it makes me cry out and call upon God, and this comes upon me with great vehemence. Sometimes I cannot remain sitting, so great is the oppression of the heart, and this pain comes on without my doing anything to cause it, and the nature of it is such that my soul would be glad never to be without it while I live. And the longings I have are longings not to live, and they come on because it seems as if I must live on without being able to find any relief, for relief comes from the vision of God, which comes by death, and death is what I cannot take. And with all this, my soul thinks that all except itself are filled with consolations, and that all find help in their troubles, but not itself. The distress thus occasioned is so intense that, if our Lord did not relieve it by throwing it into a trance, whereby all is made calm, and the soul rests in a great quiet and is satisfied, now by seeing something of that which it desires, now by hearing other things, it would seem to be impossible for it to be delivered from this pain. At other times, there come upon me certain desires to serve God, with a vehemence so great that I cannot describe it, and accompanied with a certain pain at seeing how unprofitable I am. It seems to me then that there is nothing in the world, neither death nor martyrdom, that I could not easily endure. This conviction, too, is not the result of any reflection, but comes in a moment. I am wholly changed, and I know not whence cometh such great courage. I think I should like to raise my voice, and publish to all the world how important it is for men not to be satisfied with the common way, and how great the good is that God will give us if we prepare ourselves to receive it. I say it again, these desires are such that I am melted away in myself, for I seem to desire what I cannot have. The body seems to me to hold me in prison, through its inability to serve God, and my state in anything. For if it were not for the body, I might do very great things, so far as my strength would allow. And thus, because I see myself without any power whatever to serve God, I feel this pain in a way wholly indescribable. The issue is delight, recollection, and the consolation of God. Again it has happened, when these longings to serve Him come upon me, that I wish to do penance, but I am not able. It would be a great relief to me, and it does relieve and cheer me, though what I do is almost nothing, because of my bodily weakness, And yet, if I were to give way to these my longings, I believe I should observe no moderation. Sometimes, if I have to speak to any one, I am greatly distressed, and I suffer so much that it makes me weep abundantly. For my whole desire is to be alone, and solitude comforts me, though at times I neither pray nor read, and conversation, particularly of kindred and connections, seems oppressive, and myself to be as a slave, except when I speak to those whose conversation is of prayer and matters of the soul. In these I find comfort and joy. Yet these occasionally are too much for me, and I would rather not see them, but go where I might be alone. Though this is not often the case, for those especially who direct my conscience always console me. At other times it gives me much pain that I must eat and sleep, and that I see I cannot forego these things, being less able to do so than any one. I submit that I may serve God, and thus I offer up those actions to Him. Time seems to me too short, and that I have not enough for my prayer, for I should never be tired of being alone. I am always wishing I had time for reading, for I have been always fond of reading. I read very little, for when I take up a book, I become recollected through the pleasure it gives me, and thus my reading is turned into prayer, and it is but rarely, for I have many occupations, and though they are good, they do not give me the pleasure which reading would give. And thus I am always wishing for more time, and everything becomes disagreeable, so I believe, because I see I cannot do what I wish and desire. All these desires, with an increase in virtue, have been given me by our Lord since He raised me to this prayer of quiet, and sent these raptures. I find myself so improved that I look on myself as being a mass of perdition before this. These raptures and visions leave me in possession of the blessings I shall now speak of, and I maintain that, if there be any good in me, they are the occasions of it. I have made a very strong resolution never to offend God, not even venially. I would rather die 1,000 deaths than do anything of the kind knowingly. I am resolved never to leave undone anything I may consider to be the more perfect, or more for the honor of our Lord, if He who has the care of my soul and directs me tells me I may do it. Cost me what pain it might, I would not leave such an act undone for all the treasure of the world. If I were to do so, I do not think I could have the face to ask anything of God our Lord, or to make my prayer. And yet, for all this, I have many faults and imperfections. I am obedient to my confessor, though imperfectly. But if I know that He wishes or commands anything, I would not leave that undone, as far as I understand it. If I did so, I should think myself under a grievous delusion. I have a longing for poverty, though not free from imperfection. However, I believe, if I had wealth, I would not reserve any revenue, nor hoard money for myself, nor do I care for it. I wish to have only what is necessary. Nevertheless, I feel that I am very defective in this virtue, for though I desire nothing for myself, I should like to have something to give away. Still, I desire no revenue, nor anything for myself. In almost all the visions I have had, I have found good, if it be not a delusion of Satan. Herein I submit myself to the judgment of my confessors. As to fine and beautiful things, such as water, fields, perfume, music, etc., I think I would rather not have them, so great is the difference between them and what I am in the habit of seeing, and so all pleasure in them is gone from me. Hence it is that I care not for them, unless it be at the first sight. They never make any further impression. To me they seem but dirt. If I speak or converse with people in the world, for I cannot help it, even about prayer, and if the conversation be long, though to pass away the time, I am under great restraint, if it not be necessary, for it gives me much pain. Amusements, of which I used to be fond, and worldly things, are all disagreeable to me now, and I cannot look at them. The longings which I have said I have, of loving and serving and seeing God, are not helped by any reflections, as formerly, when I thought I was very devout, and shed many tears; but they flow out of a certain fire and heat so excessive, that, I repeat it, if God did not relieve them by throwing me into a trance, wherein the soul seems to find itself satisfied, I believe my life would come to an end at once. When I see persons making great progress, and thus resolved, detached, and courageous, I love them much; and I should like to have my conversation with such persons, and I think they would help me on. People who are afraid, and seemingly cautious in those things, the doing of which is perfectly reasonable here, seem to vex me, and drive me to pray to God and the saints, to make them undertake such things as these which now frighten us. Not that I am good at anything myself, but because I believe that God helps those who, for His sake, apply themselves to great things, and that He never abandons any one who puts his trust in Him only. And I should like to find any one who would help me to believe so, and to be without thought about food and raiment, but leave it all in the hands of God. This leaving in the hands of God the supply of all I need is not to be understood as excluding all labor on my part, but merely solicitude. I mean, the solicitude of care. And since I have attained to this liberty, it goes well with me, and I labor to forget myself as much as I can. I do not think it a year ago since our Lord gave me this liberty. Vainglory, glory be to God! So far as I know, there is no reason why I should have any, for I see plainly that in these things which God sends me I have no part myself. On the contrary, God makes me conscious of my own wretchedness. For whatever reflections I might be able to make, I could never come to the knowledge of such deep truths as I attain to in a single rapture. When I speak of these things a few days after, they seem to me as if they had happened to another person. Previously, I thought it a wrong to me that they should be known to others, but I see now that I am not therefore any better, but rather worse, seeing that I make so little progress after receiving mercies so great. And certainly, in every way, it seems to me that there was not in the world anybody worse than myself, and so the virtues of others seem to me much more meritorious than mine, and that I do nothing myself but receive graces, and that God must give to others at once all that He is now giving unto me, and I pray Him not to reward me in this life. And so I believe that God has led me along this way because I am weak and wicked. When I am in prayer, and even almost always when I am able to reflect at all, I cannot, even if I tried, pray to God for rest or desire it. For I see that His life was one of suffering, and that I ask Him to send me, giving me the first grace to bear it. Everything of this kind and of the highest perfection seems to make so deep an impression on me in prayer that I am amazed at the sight of truth so great and so clear that the things of the world seem to be folly, and so it is necessary for me to take pains to reflect on the way I demeaned myself formerly in the things of the world, for it seems to me folly to feel for deaths and the troubles of the world, at least that sorrow for, or love of, kindred and friends should last long. I say I have to take pains when I am considering what I was and what I used to feel. If I see people do anything which clearly seems to be a sin, I cannot make up my mind that they have offended God, and if I dwell upon this at all, which happens rarely or never, I never can make up my mind, though I see it plainly enough. It seems to me that everybody is as anxious to serve God as I am, and herein God has been very gracious unto me, for I never dwell on an evil deed, to remember it afterwards. And if I do remember it, I see some virtue or other in that person. In this way these things never weary me, except generally. But heresies do. They distress me very much, and almost always when I think of them, they seem to me to be the only trouble which should be felt. And also I feel, when I see people who used to give themselves to prayer fall away, this gives me pain, but not much, because I strive not to dwell upon it. I find also that I am improved in the matter of that excessive neatness which I was wont to observe, though not wholly delivered from it. I do not discern that I am always mortified in this; sometimes, however, I do. All this I have described, together with a very constant dwelling in thought on God, is the ordinary state of my soul, so far as I can understand it. And if I must be busy about something else, without my seeking it, as I said before, I know not who makes me awake, and this not always, only when I am busy with things of importance; and such, glory be to God, only at intervals demand my attention, and do not occupy me at all times. For some days, they are not many, however, for 3 or 4 or 5, all my good and fervent thoughts and my visions seem to be withdrawn, yea, even forgotten, so that, if I were to seek for it, I know of no good that can ever have been in me. It seems to have been all a dream, or at least I can call nothing to mind. Bodily pains at the same time distress me. My understanding is troubled, so that I cannot think at all about God, neither do I know under what law I live. If I read anything, I do not understand it. I seem to be full of faults, and without any resolution whatever to practice virtue. And the great resolution I used to have is come to this, that I seem to be unable to resist the least temptation or slander of the world. It suggests itself to me then that I am good for nothing. If any one would have me undertake more than the common duties, I give way to sadness, thinking that I have deceived all those who trusted me at all. I should like to hide myself where nobody could see me, but my desire for solitude arises from want of courage, not from love of virtue. It seems to me that I should like to dispute with all who contradict me. I am under the influence of these impressions. Only God has been so gracious unto me that I do not offend more frequently than I was wont to do, nor do I ask Him to deliver me from them, but only, if it be His will I should always suffer thus, to keep me from offending Him. And I submit myself to His will with my whole heart, and I see that it is a very great grace bestowed upon me that He does not keep me constantly in this state. One thing astonishes me: it is that, while I am in this state, through a single word of those I am in the habit of hearing, or a single vision, or a little self-recollection, lasting but an Ave Maria, or through my drawing near to communicate, I find my soul and body so calm, so sound, the understanding so clear, and myself possessing all the strength and all the good desires I usually have. And this I have had experience of very often, at least when I go to communion. It is more than 6 months ago that I felt a clear improvement in my bodily health, and that occasionally brought about through raptures, and I find it lasts sometimes more than 3 hours, at other times I am much stronger for a whole day. And I do not think it is fancy, for I have considered the matter and reflected on it. Accordingly, when I am thus recollected, I fear no illness. The truth is, that when I pray, as I was accustomed to do before, I feel no improvement. All these things of which I am speaking make me believe that it comes from God, for when I see what I once was, that I was in the way of being lost, and that soon, my soul certainly is astonished at these things, without knowing whence these virtues came to me. I do not know myself, and saw that all was a gift, and not the fruit of my labors. I understand in all truthfulness and sincerity, and see that I am not deluded, that it has been not only the means of drawing me to God in His service, but of saving me also from hell. This my confessors know, who have heard my general confession. Also, when I see any one who knows anything about me, I wish to let him know my whole life, because my honor seems to me to consist in the honor of our Lord, and I care for nothing else. This he knows well, or I am very blind. For neither honor, nor life, nor praise, nor good either of body or of soul, can interest me, nor do I seek or desire any advantage, only His glory. I cannot believe that Satan has sought so many means of making my soul advance, in order to lose it after all. I do not hold him to be so foolish. Nor can I believe it of God, though I have deserved to fall into delusions because of my sins, that he has left unheeded so many prayers of so many good people for 2 years. And I do nothing else but ask everybody to pray to our Lord, that he would show me if this be for his glory, or lead me by another way. I do not believe that these things would be permitted by his majesty to be always going on if they were not his work. These considerations, and the reasons of so many saintly men, give me courage when I am under the pressure of fear that they are not from God, I being so wicked myself. But when I am in prayer, and during those days when I am in repose, and my thoughts fixed on God, if all the learned and holy men in the world came together and put me to all conceivable tortures, and I too, desirous of agreeing with them, they could not make me believe that this is the work of Satan, for I cannot. And when they would have had me believe it, I was afraid, seeing who it was that said so. And I thought that they must be saying what was true, and that I, being what I was, must have been deluded. But all they have said to me was destroyed by the first word, or recollection, or vision that came, and I was able to resist no longer, and believed it was from God. However, I can think that Satan now and then may intermeddle here, and so it is, as I have seen and said. But he produces different results, nor can he, as it seems to me, deceive any one possessed of any experience. Nevertheless, I say that, though I do certainly believe this to be from God, I would never do anything, for any consideration whatever, that is not judged by him who has the charge of my soul to be for the better service of our Lord. And I never had any intention but to obey without concealing anything, for that is my duty. I am very often rebuked for my faults, and that in such a way as to pierce me to the very quick, and I am warned when there is, or when there may be, any danger in what I am doing. These rebukes and warnings have done me much good, in often reminding me of my former sins, which make me exceedingly sorry. I have been very long, but this is the truth, that, when I rise from my prayer, I see that I have received blessings which seem too briefly described. Afterwards I fall into many imperfections, and am unprofitable and very wicked. And perhaps I have no perception of what is good, but am deluded. Still, the difference in my life is notorious, and compels me to think over all I have said. I mean, that which I verily believe I have felt. These are the perfections which I feel our Lord has wrought in me, who am so wicked and so imperfect. I refer it all to your judgment, my Father, for you know the whole state of my soul. End of section 1.